Oh, Bonnie and Clyde? Oh, wait. I'm reading here. Spoiler. Despite the title, there is no orangutan to get laid or signal left turns. Sorry, I'm out, guys. Maybe you can get Eric on again.
That's cinema, baby.
Sonny Corleone was a Long Island tough, big eggplant energy, but it wasn't enough. Quattro lived in a belly, but he got one in the brain. My feet exploded, Nessie driving Robocop insane. Clyde had a gun for fighting, Bonnie wanted one for fun. They was only 24 and 25, and she got 26 shots when they died. And there were squibs when they died. There were squibs when they died.
Hello and welcome to The Good, the Pod, and the Ugly, where we look at the film careers of actors and directors, most often using a patented temporal pincer movement where we start at the end of the filmography and the beginning, pairing films, and then work our way towards the middle. I am your host, Ryan.
I am other host, Ken. And we are joined, as we have been for quite a while, with Jack.
Young
Hi.
Jack.
Hey, and Thomas is off again this week.
Where is he in the world? Where do you think he is right now?
Yeah, quick, think of something funny.
Anyway, we're doing Squib season. This is episode 4 of Squib season. This pairing is, we paired last week's movie, John Wick 2, which Jack and I both felt was the best example of CGI squibs. And the earlier film we are discussing this week is Bonnie and Clyde from 1967.
Woo!
One of the first films to extensively use the squib.
The blood squib.
Yeah.
The blood
rather.
squib. And if you don't know what a squib is, then what are you even doing with your life? I mean, seriously. But if you want a brief tutorial, it is a little explosive packet, usually put on a protective plate if it's used for a blood squib. It's an explosive. Later on, they would put condoms full of blood, so it would squirt out. They would score the costume. It's very extensive, and when you yell cut and somebody flubs a line, you have to get new shirts and pants or wherever they're getting shot. I don't know. Squibs are also it refers to the electronic, not the blood. The electronic, the explosive. Not the blood. So when you see someone getting shot at and things are woods exploding, marbles exploding or whatever, those are all activated by squibs as well. Oftentimes squibs on actors will be self-activated because they're the ones acting with getting shot. So they know more than somebody off camera who might be activating them if there's something like, 26 squibs or something.
Yeah.
Squibs are great. This is Jack's idea. He's been wanting to do it forever. And the history of it that we are learning through this temporal pincer movement has been fun so far.
Yeah.
Condom Full of Blood is a great band name.
It is a great
That's
band
true.
name.
That is
Yeah. Ryan?
That is a great band name. I'm not going to be using it. It's a little fucked up for me, but I appreciate the suggestion, Jack.
Well, maybe I'll do it.
You should. I would be happy to produce. Shall we talk about
The Great Depression, yes.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about the Great Depression and also the formation of what's now known as the Motion Picture Association of America and how it all plays together with Squibs and Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
So Bonnie and Clyde is, of course, set during the Great Depression. Bonnie and Clyde's... Yes, it was very sad. My grandmother loved to tell me all about how often she ate stone soup as a kid. Still don't know if that was actually true, if she was shining me on.
Wow.
So Bonnie and Clyde is set during the Depression. Bonnie and Clyde are both Texans and real historical figures. And if anyone is not familiar with the depths of the Depression, this movie takes place in 1933 and 1934. The Depression's been happening since the stock crash of 29. So we're 4 or 5 years into it. People are living in tent cities. Many young men are just itinerant, roaming around the country, looking for work, no place to live. This is where train hopping comes from and the hobo code. is all from this time period. So in the midst of this time period, the country was also in the middle of a public enemy scourge, quote unquote, which really meant that due to the depths of the Depression, there were many celebrities running around the country robbing banks and being tabloid fodder and being written around in the press and sort of becoming folk heroes.
Yeah.
Because nobody has any money. So the fact that they would get one over on the man is kind of a big deal. Something else at the same time is happening where the public enemies are also becoming stars of films. And that is a problem for the recently formed Motion Picture Association of America. If the MPA was constructed today, we would speak about it rightfully as a criminal conspiracy. They are a cartel of major studios that determine the calendar for when movies are released, which theaters they go to, what you can show in those movies, and so who has a right to put those movies out. All of that is controlled by the small non-governmental body that's run by the major motion picture studios. Due in part to the success of movies about these criminals like Babyface and those sorts of folks, Dillinger. The MPA puts together something that they call the Hays Code, and it's named after William Hays, who is the first head of the MPA. He was a former Postmaster General.
Shout out.
Shout out. That's important, the Postmaster General bit, because back in the day, if you were going to be arrested for breaking censorship laws or showing pornography, it was going to be the mailman who came to arrest you, because it was actually the transference of this stuff across state lines that made it illegal. So you could shoot a nudie movie and show it in your house and not get caught. But the second you tried to ship it to a theater in Pittsburgh, the Postmaster General come a knocking at your door.
Man, I could shoot a nudie movie in my house?
Yeah.
Is that in the Constitution?
Welcome to the internet. It is now. Well, it's in the Supreme Court law for now. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years. Very quickly to wrap up this story about the Postmaster General. Before the Hays Code got put into effect, and the Hays Code is a group of regulations that would become our traditional rating system. Before the Hays Code was put into effect, William Hays testified in front of Congress about why Congress should not regulate films and they should let Hollywood do it themselves. And he had a very insightful piece of testimony where he basically said that Hollywood movies were the best exporter of American capitalism to other parts of the world. So Hollywood should be allowed to continue unabated and keep growing that economy, keep growing democracy. Whew. All of that was in effect until the late 1950s, when the Supreme Court struck down the Hays Code. It took about 10 years for Hollywood to make a movie that just overtly violated it. And that, my friends, is the film Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah. My understanding is the cartel, as you rightfully call them, got together and implemented the Hays Code because they want to do an end around because Congress is about to do it themselves.
Yes.
We're a very puritanical country, and it was less the violence than the sex and nudity.
The sexy times. And in fact, Bonnie and Clyde they go to the movie theater and they watch The Gold Diggers of 1933, which was a huge hit during the Depression and was very tawdry by the standards that would become the Hays Code. So,
and now we have the Kardashians on reality TV for 10 years.
Yeah, all the rules have gone out. So you still can't say the 7 naughty words, though.
Yeah.
It's really...
those are in the Constitution.
Thou shalt not say fuck and refer to the body.
And I always, whenever I see a crime movie talking about the Hays Code from that era, and it could be like the fucking greatest thing ever, I'm always disappointed because the guy you're rooting for, the bad guy, always gets killed.
Yeah.
Yes,
and you always had to pay for your crime, and that extended to foreign films, which were not necessarily under the auspices of the Hays Code. But I'm thinking about Purple Noon, the Talented Mr. Ripley thing.
Spoilers.
Ripley's got to get caught. Spoiler. Ripley's got to get caught at the end of it because we were having too much fun watching him get away with it. Yeah, they're all kind of buzzkills for a certain kind of movie.
Yes, the Jimmy Cagney movie, I don't remember if it's Public Enemy or Angel Face, one of those noirs, really puts a fine point on this because he just goes ham, machine gun in every motherfucker in that movie. And then the movie ends with a 5-minute speech where he's crying to his mother and confessing that he did it all wrong. And he would just go back and he wouldn't kill anybody again if he knew, if he knew what horrors await. So,
that was Angels with Filthy Souls, I think.
Angels with Filthy Souls. That's right. Not Angel Face.
Or Angels with Dirty Faces. It's interesting that the movie we're talking about is a story about criminals, and you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is like a romp. And then they also pay for their crimes in the most violent way imaginable. And in 1967, this is what's like the inflate, like when you have a budget and you say adjusted for inflation, what level of violence that was shown in 1967 could we equate it with in 2025?
I don't think there is anything.
This, if you didn't have the squibs, this would be a PG-13 picture. Easy now.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie is still R because of the way it's shown that they get killed at the end?
I think it's rated R because of the political valence more than anything. Because it was so, they promoted it as being inspired by French New Wave and Vietnam.
For sure.
And I think the Vietnam part of it just immediately made it. And then obviously it was very graphic at the time for what was.
I mean, they are taking it to the man, and that is the subtext that made it so popular at the time.
Well, that is also true, and it's kind of the inverse of the way we live now. The other thing that was going on is that it had been impossible to put camera people for the nightly news in a war before Vietnam and show real broadcast. Yeah. So this movie is heavy for what we were doing in movies at the time. But literally, like my parents talk about when they were 7 or 8, like turning on the TV and seeing a guy's guts hanging out of him. And so it created, and I think we still live in this kind of false dichotomy too, mostly false dichotomy. Shit. The way
I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
The way we look at sex in movies and porn in reality is very much kind of similar, where it's not good to show. The Zoomers don't want to see the titties in their movie, but everybody is going home and jacking it and looking at just awful shit. So that we just pretend that doesn't happen in our entertainment.
Yeah. Does anybody have any background on the making of this film? I mean, Arthur Penn directed it. He would also go on to direct one of my all-time favorite movies, Night Moves, also with Gene Hackman.
Oh, I really like Night Moves.
6 or 7 years later.
Yeah.
And it was Newman and Robert Benton co-wrote the script. R.I.P. Benton passed away recently and was director of Kramer vs. Kramer, which we covered on this podcast, and Bad Company, which is one of my favorite Easy Rider inspired road movies, but it's also a Western. And a bunch of other movies. Benton was, and The Late Show, of course, with Art Carney and Lily Tomlin. Sorry, Thomas, you didn't get to talk about that movie. There's a great anecdote about Jack Warner, the head of Warner Brothers at the time, who was like, he did not want to make the movie, and Warren Beatty came in to his office, and Warner said, the only way I would make that is if you make it in the style of the 1930s gangster movies. And Beatty, to his credit, Beatty was in that era from the late 60s to the late 70s, early 80s, had his antenna up to whatever was going on, and it's just like he knew what he had. And Warner told him to look out the window at the giant tower that lorded over Burbank and said that my name is on the studio. And Warren Beatty famously said, "Yeah, but they're my initials."
I've never heard that story.
So Warner never liked the movie, hated it. Beatty made a deal with the studio because they had so little faith in it to get 40% of the gross instead of his normal producer fee, because this was his first film he did. Because from this point on, Beatty would become like not a control freak, but he would produce and be part of the writing process of all his subsequent movies.
Some incredible movies. Yeah.
I mean, the movie for 1967 made like $70 million. So Beatty made so much money off of this movie and had the insane belief in the telling of it that it would strike a chord with people of a certain age, the baby boomers who are just coming into their own, would go crazy for it. And he was right.
And that's all great context, Ken. One of the things that Penn brought to the movie was a real fascination with the French New Wave. And he and Beatty worked together to craft the kind of language, the visual language of the film, which mixes references to the 30s with, some Godardian editing and stuff.
And I don't know why more modern directors don't find influence there, because I find the cuts to people reacting or insert shots so much more appealing as a form of cinema than the cut and dry A to B that we get today. And the form that the film takes is one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah. And that's a fascinating call out, Ken. The jump cut where you have an actor acting out the same scene twice, and there's a variance in how they act in both scenes. And a jump cut is when the director slices those two takes together. So you're seeing a person react one way, and then it cuts very abruptly, and you see them react a different way. That is something that was very much prominent in Godard's Breathless and reappears here. And now it is used quite often just in cinematic language, and it no longer means, it's just a stylistic trick now. It doesn't have, Godard thought that it both would call attention to the editing of the film and the point of view of the director, but that it would also remind you that people can react dynamically. You can be in the same situation and might have 5 different reactions. You only get one in the real world, but now it's just like an MTV thing.
Ryan, what is your experience with this film? When's the first time you saw it? How many times have you watched it?
This is my 4th time seeing it. I haven't seen it in quite some time. It's obviously very important in film studies. Everybody watches this one. So I saw it a couple times in college, and then once once during the pandemic, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack?
First viewing. I've seen the ending before, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is my 3rd or 4th time.
Did you see the ending in school, Jack?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Third grade. Well, the teacher was really hungover.
This is often called out even in high school media studies classes. They'll show you this to talk about the
Great Depression,
Vietnam bleeding into popular entertainment.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean this is that great era of the late 60s and 70s that all us film nerds of a certain age, other than like Thomas and Jack, really refer to as like the golden era, even though it lasted like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So this came out in 1967. On the podcast, we also discussed The Dirty Dozen and The Graduate.
Woo! Yeah.
Wait, when did we talk about The Graduate?
Didn't we do The Graduate for Mike Nichols?
Yeah.
Maybe I just watched that one.
No, we didn't. We didn't
the
talk
Streeps.
about The Graduate.
Okay, I watched The Graduate. So Dirty Dozen is the only one.
You're just talking about movies that you've watched.
There's a list of 9 movies, 1967 that I like. Clint Eastwood didn't have a feature film. He was in The Witches, that weird anthology film from Italy that we never watched or discussed
because it doesn't exist.
This
anywhere.
would be a year after The Good, the Bad, and The Ugly came out, and a year before he had his big American films. Well, he came back to America with Hang 'em High, Coogan's Bluff, and Where Eagles Dare in 1968.
I think there's a reference to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly very early on in this movie when Faye Dunaway is outside in her small town, and it's a very long shot. She's on one side of the street, and a dog walks across the middle of the frame.
Oh, it's not when Michael J. Pollard keeps calling her Blondie.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm Blondie.
Hey, Blondie.
This would be 1 year before Steven Spielberg's first short film, Amblin.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 years before his first TV show with Dr. Whatever it was, Dr. Fuckface, MD. I don't know what it was.
I put my phone down.
Did either of you come up with a list of what last week's film, John Wick 2 and Bonnie and Clyde, have in common? Because Thomas is not with us.
Yes,
Oh, you did?
I did.
All right.
Both this film and John Wick 2 feature financial institutions with large sums of money.
Uh-huh.
Cars that are driven fastly.
Yep.
Both feature a scene in which a house is destroyed.
Ooh.
With some sort of projectile
Very
object.
good. Very good.
And both have discussions of dinner with the 5 chicken dinners and the
All the lamb
potatoes cooked in duck fat.
Uh-huh.
Both have knives used as weapons. Briefly in Bonnie and Clyde, the store owner swings a meat cleaver at Clyde. Both have dudes in suits. Protagonists with infamous names.
Ooh.
And protagonists that are recognized in a public space and subsequently attacked.
Wow. Very good.
And both have squibs.
Uh-huh.
Which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what they have in common. One of the films features common.
God damn it. Ryan, I said that before we started recording.
I stole it.
Oh. I bet your delivery was better, young Jack.
Shut up, man. That was golden. So Bonnie and Clyde, if you've never seen it, are about a man named Clyde and a woman named Bonnie. And he is already a thief and ex-con. And he meets her while he's attempting to steal her 80-year-old mother's car. And then they go on the run together and they pick up some found family folks and rob banks and become folk heroes before being brutally shot down.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
And shot down mostly for being outside of the law, right? Like they've killed a lot of police officers and stuff by this point, but they're targeted so much because they're celebrities. It seems.
And you touched on it when you were talking about the Great Depression, and the way this movie opens with a camera clicking and photos of the Great Depression.
Really
is a great opening, and then like the title and the actors' names come up in white and turn blood red. Amazing for any title credits, but for 1967, I forgot all about that. Great way to open the movie, and the movie is kind of a romp in a lot of ways, or
it's a lot of fun,
or a road trip.
Yeah.
And then Gene Hackman pops up as his brother. I always forget Gene Hackman's in here, even though it was his first Oscar nomination.
Oh, really?
He's fucking Gene Hackman.
Hackman,
one of the best screen actors of all time.
Yeah, my favorite. Yeah,
yeah. And then Michael J. Pollard as the getaway driver who kind of sucks at his job.
Oh, is that his name? I love that guy.
So everybody else pretty much drives after he fucks up that first robbery,
but they keep him around.
Yeah, because he's Michael J. Pollard. He's
Nobody
cool.
else looks like that.
He's got the worst movie tattoo on his chest. It's like, just put your shirt on, man. No one's buying that. But really, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. I mean, this is their movie. Woo! And both had been in movies before. But Dunaway in particular, man, there are some scenes where she is like a giant amongst little people.
Yeah, yeah.
Her performance is so magnetic.
Well,
I don't know, magnetic. It's just like, you can't keep your eyes off her. And she's just such a dicey character. And she plays every beat so well.
Yeah. She's a really great actress for how beautiful she is. And is this the best looking couple, the best looking screen couple? Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty? Or is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How the hell they have sex problems? You know?
Well, he was impotent, right? Like, at least that's the...
Is that true?
I don't know that anyone knows, but yes, that is the folk tale, is that he can't get it up.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know if that was just invented for the movie or not, because it comes into play at the end.
Yeah. And that's probably the most acting Beatty has ever had to do in his life. Like, a woman's going down on me and I'm just not into it. It's like,
yeah.
Who can I talk to for advice how to play this?
And you know that he had sex with every woman on set to prove that it was not really a problem for him.
Just you're right. One of the most beautiful screen couples,
Yeah.
and a really unusual dynamic and chemistry they have. But we're not to reactions yet, are we?
No, but I would like to point out about their beauty. In juxtaposition to almost every other Hollywood movie, if you look up pictures of Bonnie and Clyde, they are hot. Like Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway look better, but they were very striking for their time and place.
Yes.
The real life person who was the sister-in-law to Clyde Barrow, who's played by Estelle, I forget her name. Anyway, the real life lady wanted to sue the film company because she didn't like the portrayal, and also she was better looking than Bonnie Parker.
Which is rude to Bonnie. I mean, Bonnie Parker is not a looker, in my opinion, mostly because she's standing next to Faye Dunaway the whole movie. And she's whining. You know, she's very... I can understand getting pissed off about the portrayal. Yeah,
and this starts like Faye Dunaway's like 10, 12 years of just being like the actress.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, by coincidence, I watched probably the end of Dunaway's reign as like the top Hollywood actress, Mommy Dearest.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a crazy otherworldly performance that anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent about Mommy Dearest and The Master and Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, what? Okay, actually, maybe
let's
after the episode.
Pull it back.
I think Dunaway's performance as Joan Crawford and Joaquin Phoenix in The Master are like two performances that seem like an alien came down and studied movies and then was really talented, but it's just a little alien to the rest of humans and all performances in film history. They just kind of stand out.
That makes sense. I think Dunaway looks otherworldly, and I always think Joaquin is being beamed in from somewhere.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my connection there.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Thomas is in here. Jack, what'd you think of Bonnie and Clyde?
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I was not expecting it to be as... It's weird that it's a fun movie. I thought it was going to be... It's set during the Depression. It's... I know how it ends. I thought it was going to be a downer, but most of it's a fun little romp. And I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Except for Buck's wife.
Yeah, she's hard to take.
I know she's supposed to be annoying, and I know that Faye Dunaway, her character, gets increasingly annoyed at her throughout the movie. I was also increasingly annoyed at her throughout the movie, and I was very glad when she was out of the movie, only to come back for one more scene. She is still going on
to be the instrument of their deaths. Really,
the worst.
Yeah, the scene where one of the 18 scenes where they're in a motor court and the police find him. Like, come on, guys. Where she's just like screaming the entire time, and then they pick her up. It's like, don't pick her up. Just leave her there.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Bonnie and Clyde, the movie?
I don't like this movie very much.
Whoa.
What?
I think that it is very laden with like 60s references, both in saying like, hey, look how hippie-ish Bonnie and Clyde are, but it's also trying really hard to say like, hey, look at the 30s and all the old-timey stuff that they had to put up with. Whenever there's action and thrills, it's amazing, but I think honestly the lack of music makes it, whenever they're sitting in a house just talking, I go up the wall. And they have the same conversation over and over again about how Bonnie's unhappy and the other lady's annoying. And I'm sorry to shit talk it, because it is a great film with a capital G, both in the sense that it was a huge hit. Everybody loved it. Critics love it. And it's historically significant, but it's not my bag.
Wow.
Huh.
I love it. I think it's weird. Like Jack said, it's a lot of fun. It goes by really quick. It's one of those old school pictures. It's like what an hour and 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's how long movies should be. I get a little frustrated. This is made like 3 decades after the real people died. So a lot of people that were around when that happened were still around in the late 60s.
Mhm.
There is a weird sense of lack of context. I think as a modern viewer, I want like a montage of spinning newspapers or newsreels, like in Public Enemies, a Michael Mann movie we covered on the podcast, where, you know, he's like actually in a theater when they're showing a newsreel about him.
Such a badass scene.
But I think what I really love about movie is that stuff's not in it. It's like it doesn't show the context of how everybody is necessarily seeing, and we hear it a few times.
Yeah.
But they're kind of siloed in their own little. It's just us, found family, going around having a good time, taking it to the man. And I think that smallness is what I really appreciate about it, because I bet if we watched the miniseries that came out 10 years ago about Bonnie and Clyde, it probably has a lot more context.
Oh yes, it's very melodramatic as well. Yeah, I think everything that you are saying is a strong point for this movie. My experience also might be tempered by there were like 4 or 5 movies about Bonnie and Clyde type figures that came out in the next several years, including Thieves Like Us by Robert Altman. And they're all of a piece. And so like part of my feeling about that might be I watched all those for school. And so together, maybe my impression of it is dampening this particular one. But enough about me.
No, I mean, how this movie appealed to people in 1967 is also a big part of the story. I mean, this is like, what, a year or two before Midnight Cowboy?
Yeah.
One of the most depressing, grungiest movies that was rated X, won the Oscar. And John Schlesinger was an Oscar winner. And this was a crazy time, both in culture and in movies. And this is really one of the early igniters of that change.
Yeah.
So if you take away the movie and whatever you think about the movie, I personally think formally it's a brilliant movie. It's a lot of fun, and Beatty and Dunaway are just gorgeous. But as a cultural touchstone and change in film, I mean, this is a super important movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a hinge point for the way pop culture would interact. I mean, I don't think if people hadn't seen Bonnie and Clyde, I don't think the kids would have been ready for Easy Rider, you know?
Yeah, or Wild Bunch.
Yeah, all of that stuff. This lays the groundwork for everything that's to come in the next decade, which is like, as you said, Ken, like most of my favorite movies were made between 1967 and 1980. So, this is a watershed moment for that.
Yeah, I would say same. That is the era, and we always think of that as like an era. But if you look at the history of film, when it's 130 years old,
yeah,
that it's just a blip. Yeah. And most eras of filmmaking are just shitty commercial stuff made by hacks.
I'm as I get older, that's actually the most surprising thing to me, Ken, is what remains from these periods that we consider to be very important. And like, you know, I did not have my bingo card that Third Eye Blind would be the most popular rock band from the 90s, but here we are, you know, like it's a weird world. Yeah, of all the legacy rock bands, besides like Pearl Jam and some bands that are still active, Third Eye Blind is like the millennials' favorite Gen X band. That is indie rock and alternative to them.
All right, this is not a quiz question. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But how many actors have their film debut where they have their character's name is their name, like Gene Wilder here?
He's so good. I'm always so happy to see him when I watch this.
I was very surprised to see him.
Yeah, he's Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
Eugene Grizzard, was that his name? That was based on something that actually happened. I was surprised to learn.
Yeah.
From the Wikipedia page.
This movie is actually pretty historically faithful. I mean, they were folk legends, but
the tattoo guy character, I think he's an amalgamation of a few different people that they had along the way, and you know, some of them got arrested or killed or whatever. But besides that, I find it really interesting how Bonnie and Clyde are portrayed in this movie. I don't necessarily know what position the film is taking, but it does seem to me that this kind of almost tragically revels them as both just two young people.
Yeah.
That are in love and they have great chemistry and you're sympathetic towards them because, you know, they're poor and it's the Depression, whatever, but tragically become this symbol of something that neither of them can be, I guess.
I think that's what, when Ken was talking about Beatty selling the movie, he said, you know, he knew what he had. And I think you just put your finger on what he had, was like that these characters could both be, you know, renegade outlaws, but also true generational heroes, you know, not even really anti-heroes for the times.
Yeah. And the fact that he could see it and had to convince Penn to do the film. And he also had Robert Towne come in and work on the script uncredited. I think he has an associate producer.
Yeah, he gets a small credit.
But he worked on the script. Beatty was always changing scripts, and then they worked with Newton and Benton for months to get it down to. It's a pretty finely tuned script. Yeah, I don't know what the difference is between the shooting script and the final movie, but the movie is fairly spare.
Yeah,
and a lot of anecdotal road trip stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
which I love.
Yeah. If Beatty was a director, or if Beatty, if we credited actor producers, you know, as being auteurs more often, I mean, movies like this and Shampoo are just really incredibly shepherded projects, and they have different directors and they have different styles, but they are Warren Beatty movies in every sense of the way, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Shampoo's great. Big fan.
I love in Bonnie and Clyde how whenever they meet people, they're like, we rob banks, and then they wait to see how people react. I think that's it's such a cool callback. Every time it happens, I giggle. It's very, it only occurred to me while you were talking, Ken, but it's like starting a band. Like at the time, if you saw it in the 60s and somebody came up to you and was like, we're starting an acid rock band, and then waiting to see how you'd respond, you'd be like, fuck yeah, I'll go play, or no, get away from me. That's so gross, you know?
Yeah. And they were folk heroes at the time. Same with Dillinger. Hold on, my dog's barking.
I thought the audio cut out.
No. Fucking stupid ass dog. Cats don't bark. Gotta admit.
No, but they meow at you when they want your attention, and they wake you up in the middle of the night.
And 2 seconds after you die on the kitchen floor, they'll start eating your fucking face. Dogs will lay by you whining
until they
die. Wake up. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. They were folk heroes at the time because, you know, everyone was poor and they were, as you said earlier, sticking it to the man. And I don't know if this movie really postulates them as heroes or not. I was trying to kind of ask that earlier. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but as far as real life folk heroes go, they did kill and screw over a lot of innocent people as well. I don't condone their actions, but you know, also it was the Great Depression. I wasn't around back then. I'll be around for the next one. In a couple years.
This is good education for all you people in your early 20s to watch Bonnie and Clyde. That's what you're going to be doing in a few years.
Bonnie and Clyde and the Grapes of Wrath and Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior.
Yep. Is that your lookbook for your debut feature film?
Yes.
That's good.
Very good.
But I can't wrap my head around, because I wasn't alive back then. Neither were you two, I don't think, in 1967. Thomas certainly wasn't. But I don't know how an audience would react to this movie back then. How they would react to these characters specifically.
I've done a lot of studying of this time, so I could say a little bit about at least what's in the history books.
Would people watch this and be like, "Oh fuck yeah, Bonnie and Clyde were awesome"?
Like what's the corollary for 1992, 1991, which would be the same number of years from today?
Like what would be a similar, I mean, I think Natural Born Killers, which is obviously inspired by Bonnie and Clyde, I think was an attempt to update it very specifically.
Successful attempt.
Crudely and terribly.
No.
Is the words you were looking for.
I go back and forth about whether that is a great movie or I fucking hate it. I cannot tell you.
I go back and forth whether I hate it or I fucking hate it.
So, Jack, to your question, so in 1966 is when really, 65 and 66 is when the hippie movement in earnest kicked off, and it was at Berkeley, and they were still, every guy still wore a suit and tie, every girl still wore a knee-length long skirt to class. And it initially started because they weren't allowed to have speeches about Vietnam. And all they wanted to do was have a public speech in the school square where they talked about how Vietnam fucking sucked. And that everything else that came afterwards really escalated out of that, including the changes in outfits and anything. In any case, in 67, this hits, and the idea of rebellion is in the air, but no one has had a chance to really articulate it. And so you get like the first stabs with the Summer of Love and all this stuff. The hippies start getting in the media, and Bonnie and Clyde was, because it was California and Warren Beatty, that's close enough to San Francisco, and it's kind of rebellious. So this was, if you were hippie curious and you were under the age of 30, you would have gone to see Bonnie and Clyde. And they were heroes because the man was killing your friends using the draft without anybody's consent. So the idea that you would shoot a cop in the face to get one over on the man was like, theoretically, not many hippies went violent, but theoretically that was all good for them.
Yeah.
And I have two clarifications. Vietnam does not suck. It's a lovely country. The Vietnam War sucked.
Thank you.
And also, when you said that the anti-war hippie movement began in earnest, it's also the setting for the film Ernest Goes to Berkeley, which has Jim Varney's Ernest attending Berkeley in 1966.
Shit out of that. Oh my god.
I'm gonna do a sit in Vern. Know what I mean?
You got to cut that out because we got to sell that shit to Happy Gilmore Productions. That is such a good bit. There is a great documentary about all of this called Berkeley in the 60s, and it is, if you want to know what happened with the hippies in an hour and 45 minutes, sit down and watch this movie because it's all in there. It's a very good movie.
Right on.
Yeah. So this is Squib season 15 of The Good, the Pod, and the Ugly. I'm going to put in some unfortunate machine gun fire here. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Let's talk about the squibs in this film.
Yeah, in color, bloody as hell.
I really love the 70s gore, and it starts here, really, because it is both realistic in flashes and absurd at like length. So like when they get shot, it is fucking just as visceral as anything that you might see today. But like there's a great shot during the chaos of one of the getaways where one of them shoots a guy in the face, the bank teller's
through the glass of the car.
Yeah. And that is both
good.
An amazing scene, but like the blood, it just doesn't look like how you know it would look. And I find that to be quaint and fun.
Yeah, it's bright red. It's like paint.
Yeah.
That really surprised me because I thought going into this, the only squibs we were going to get would be the scene at the end. And so, yeah, when they shoot that guy in the face and the blood sprays on the broken glass, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. So what you have to do is imagine in 1967, there was no internet. There was no YouTube showing you the ending of this movie. That you go in. It is narratively and tonally, I mean, obviously, it has the classical structure where Hackman's character passes away and then the wife, and you kind of feel everything kind of falling apart. It's like it's the hangover after the fun thing. But like in Goodfellas, the hangover part is like a third of the movie. And this one, it's just like a couple scenes. It's still kind of a romp and they're still in the middle of it. There's no scene where Bonnie and Clyde are like, man, this really sucks. It's like the scene before it, they're in town and then they're going home and then they get killed.
Yeah.
And then the ending has one of the great ending shots of just the guys walking towards it. It's not like a beautiful shot or anything. It's just almost a random shot of the guys walking toward the car that their dead bodies are near.
Yeah.
Had to be utterly shocking the way the movie ended.
Well, and not just the ending, but there is like in the Faye Dunaway very early on, it's one of the first scenes of the movie, is on the bed and reflecting on her sad ass life. And there's a jump cut of her being pensive and then being a little bit more distraught. And most Americans would have, the idea of going to an art house theater to see a foreign film like Breathless was out of, you could only do that in New York and LA, really. So the filmmaking here, which is now fairly normal to us, would have been startling to see a movie shot entirely on location with the jump cuts and the natural approach to sound and lighting and picture framing is all very, and even that boredom that I don't like in the movie, that would have been very provocative at the time,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about films, small films, foreign films, certain filmmakers, and the effect they have inspiring mainstream filmmakers sometimes a decade later. And you could definitely see the influence of the French New Wave in the way this film was put together and edited. But they were reacting off of something, and the French New Wave was all reacting off of Hollywood movies, but giving it their spin. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say a copy of a copy, but it's reinterpreting something that was in and of itself reinterpreting something.
Yeah, and I wish Penn got into that more. That's one of the reasons why I like when they tell people, that they rob banks, because in Breathless, the protagonist is obsessed with being a badass like Humphrey Bogart. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, they are trying to be badasses like Dillinger. And it's all that celebrity thing. And whenever this movie gets into that stuff is when I think it's the most exciting.
Very good.
It's a classic. And as far as Squibs go, also undeniably one of the most important, probably this and The Wild Bunch are the two often cited as the ones that at the time people are like, oh my gosh, what are we watching?
Yeah, yeah.
But after like almost an hour and a half of this, you know what you're watching. See the guy get shot. So maybe nobody said that.
Yeah.
Way to argue myself out of an argument. So should we put in fanfare for the Squib Academy Awards?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, we're not going to do funny names. I'm just going to do best and worst.
Awesome. No, I really like it when you're trying to figure out what a bit is as we're recording live.
Yeah,
it always makes it so much better.
Okay. Do we want to do worst or best first?
Let's go with worst.
Okay, what's the worst squib in this film?
I've got one.
Go for it.
When Gene Hackman, and I kind of love it, when Gene Hackman gets shot in the head, it is so clearly just a handful of red paint that he has that he slaps on his forehead.
Yeah.
Which is utterly ridiculous, but quite charming.
Yes.
I was going to nominate when, who's the other lady? Not Bonnie, but anyway, when she gets shot in the eye. And that's just like her pressing her hand to her eyeball.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny. She gets hit and I think, oh, she's dead.
Yeah.
But she's not.
She's blind.
Both of them live a lot longer than it seems like they ought to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like both of those. The Gene Hackman one is pretty funny.
That's pretty funny.
I mean, it's Gene Hackman, so.
And we're going to see that a lot with To Live and Die in LA, because some of the headshot squibs in that movie, I guess they're not even squibs. They're so ridiculous. Just clearly a bucket of red paint thrown at someone.
What's the best? The award for best squib in Bonnie and Clyde? Is it just the collection of squibs at the end? I mean,
it's got to be, right?
One of the most iconic.
They're just loaded up with, and it's not just the squibs on them. It's the entire car and the entire area surrounding the car is just loaded with hundreds and hundreds of explosives. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
Fuck the cops, man.
That's right.
Okay.
Whatever you think about, they were, terrorizing countryside, and they did a lot of bad shit, but the police should not be able to legally ambush, just put together a death squad.
Yeah, no,
it's horrible.
It was considered appalling at the time, even. That was one of the things that really launched their celebrity into mythic status. And it's also to your point, Jack, about how they would have been perceived at the time. A very subtle thing is that they are always striking out in self-defense, and the premise is like, money is stupid. You shouldn't kill someone over money. You should just let us walk out of here.
Yeah.
And so it is a kind of generational provocation too, where underlying it is the idea that you shouldn't protect property with lethal force, which a lot of Red America would obviously disagree greatly about.
Wow. Last week I had the John Wick 2 quiz. I'm sorry, but I have a To Clyde quiz as well.
Yep.
To follow that up. Bonnie and Clyde quiz. There are no right answers. There are no wrong answers. True or false? Faye Dunaway aced her audition by coming in, being completely silent, and then having a marksman shoot her 26 times.
That's funny.
Clyde Barrow was nicknamed what on his high school football team? A, Clyde the Wheelbarrow. Pretty good. B, Clyde the Glide, like Clyde Drexler of the Trailblazers. C, Spree, for how he went on scoring runs. Or D, crazy kid talking to himself in an overgrown field because there was no football team or high school.
Wasn't his middle name like actually Chestnut or something?
Oh, that sounds like research you guys should have done. I did my John Wick stuff. So.
Okay, well, whatever.
True or false? Serge Gainsbourg claimed his song Bonnie and Clyde was not about the famous American thieves, but about a forbidden romance between French cousins. True or false? Though built for airflow, the 43 holes Yakima built into their Bonnie and Clyde edition roof rack to celebrate the film's 40th anniversary was widely found offensive, and the product quietly disappeared. Okay, I got one more. Terrence Malick was not only inspired by the film Bonnie and Clyde for Badlands, but in some of the behind-the-scene things that resulted in the film, particularly Arthur Penn having completely removed a vital character in the script and shooting, who was also a celebrity. Which of the following is the celebrity and plot Penn had removed? A, William Holden as a fey cat burglar with a French accent. B, Wilt Chamberlain, who played Clyde's older brother, Toots, whose whole character was him finishing tasks too fast because he had to get to the card game, which he did in multiple cut bank robbery sequences. C, Liza Minnelli as a doomed cheerleader who missed the bus after the big game that they pick up. But when they get to the school, it burned down 30 years ago, and she turns into a skeleton. Or D, Nancy Reagan as a junkie whore.
D.
Oh, I love it.
That's your Bonnie and Clyde quiz. Thomas can't come back soon enough.
That was pretty good. Next week, I do want to hear the Iron Lady, though, if we don't have Thomas back.
I'll bring back Harry Carey, maybe.
What are we watching next week, Kenneth?
You are going to be delighted that we are, for the first time in podcast history, I think, covering a Tarantino.
Yeah!
Django.
First and last.
Django. Unchained,
no, we got to run we've got to run the gauntlet someday, Jack. Come on.
Which is paired with one of the all-time greats, First Blood.
Yeah,
Ooh.
2 all-time greats sitting right next to each other on the shelf for us.
One all-time great, one movie that kind of sucks.
Squib-wise, one may be the best Squib movie of the 21st century, but is still kind of a faint echo of a better movie made a few years earlier. Anyway, Ryan, thank you for the theme song.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
And thanks to Patrick for joining us.
Thanks to Patrick for joining us. Patrick, who was here hopefully last week, unless the files are lost, really wanted to do Bonnie and Clyde, but for technical reasons was unable to join us for Bonnie and Clyde.
We'll record a little something.
Yeah.
Try to.
Yeah.
If you're ever in Portland, Oregon, check out Tomorrow Records.
Tomorrow Records, run by Patrick. You can come in and say, "Hey, I heard that you were going to be on a podcast, but technical difficulties." And be like,
and then if you say that, you get a free record.
Totally free record. Free record of your choice.
Of your choice. You can pick one of the really expensive ones on the wall.
Yeah, some good ones.
Yeah, it's a great record store.
Yeah.
Check it out.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
See you for Django.
Yeah. Django.
When they died.
It's pretty good.
And there were squibs when they died. 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 Yeah, they made a big mess when they died. On they follow Walker down South American way. It got squibby, sticky, messy when they got there that day. Peyton lost his love and so he made a face. Django met a dentist, but big holes in little brains. Montoya's chest exploded, somehow wasn't the cocaine. And there were squibs when they died. There were squibs when they died. And there were squibs when they died. There were squibs when they died. Yeah, they made a big mess and then they died.
The Great Depression, yes.
False dichotomy too, mostly false dichotomy. Shit. Jacking it and looking at just awful shit.
Dr. Fuckface, MD. Most eras of filmmaking are just shitty commercial stuff made by hacks. I'm sorry.
Also, it was the Great Depression. I wasn't around back then. I'll be around for the next one.
Thomas can't come back soon enough.